Oh yeah, I'm here. I didn't forget. Don't you worry. We are here to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm doing a topic that actually I had somebody start talking about this particular topic, and I didn't really know where to go with it. I have actually used dragon mounts in the past. I've had dragon riders in my games, so I'm not talking from a point of perspective where I'm just sort of just guessing here because I've actually done it. So I thought, well, this is a good topic to talk about. Start talking about the things that I've done in my games, right? Now you'll find the start time for this video down in the description. So it'll be down there once I'm sort of ready to release it, but it will go unlisted. So that means that usually only the patrons can access the unlisted videos, but if you get a notification, you should be able to access it for a little while. I will release this video as an edited version later on. Now, if you haven't been part of my live streams, normally what I do is I present everything first, and then I open it up for questions and answers. And you are welcome to hang around and answer or ask questions or give feedback if you want near the end of the live stream once I've done my presentation. Okay, so get comfortable, grab yourself some food, some drink, and let's talk about dragon riders and the whole topic, because it's quite an interesting topic and there's a lot to be said. All right. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and today's topic is that's right, it's about dragons and dragon riders. Where have all the dragon riders gone? Particularly for Dungeons and Dragons 5e. Now, yes, I am aware that there is a homebrew dragon rider class. That is not what this video is about. If you want to go and check out that, if you Google it, you will find it. It does exist. If you want to use it, great. Fantastic. Not what this video is actually about, though. There were so many dragon riders in the past for Dungeons and Dragons. Dragonlance is a really good example. This is a campaign that was run for many years with players and dungeon masters who had characters who rode dragons. So what happened? Somewhere along the line, somebody has decided this is a bad idea. And I can kind of understand why, but I want to provide you with a bit more foresight into what you can do with regard to dragon riders and how to approach it. Now, we really see the Dragon Rider in Dungeons & Dragons 5e games. I don't know that I have seen many Dungeon Masters ever do this, except for myself. I think there may be one other individual I've ever met who's actually done something with Dragon Riders. So, why are there no Dragon Riders in Dungeons & Dragons 5e? Why are there no Dragon Riders that people are using in their games? Well, we know why. Okay, we can say ultimately that it's the Dungeon Master, but a lot of people would say, well, actually it's to do with the fact that there are no rules. There's no rules for Dungeons & Dragons 5e to actually run Dragon Riders. Nothing that's balanced and works, and, so how do I do it? That's not there. There's actually enough basic information on skills in the skills section for you to be able to figure out a lot of this. And if you look back at sort of the kind of concepts regarding actually being a dragon rider, you can sort of piece together enough as a dungeon master to figure it out. And I would ultimately, if you start using skill checks to work through the process of somebody playing a character who rides a dragon, use high checks. Use a DC 20 or DC 30 or DC 25. Make it hard. Make it difficult. It should be hard to ride a dragon. It shouldn't be something that's easy. Another reason or rationale behind the fact that there are not that many dragon riders is that, well, ultimately other players and the dungeon master view it as being overpowered. And yes, having a dragon as a mount is certainly extremely overpowered, but there are ways of dealing with that, and often the response to not having dragon riders in a game is a response of dungeon master fear, a lack of control, or an increase in workload. Now, I can guarantee that having dragon riders in your game is going to increase your workload. That's definitely there. Rule complexity. the rules are now becoming more complex. There's going to be synergies working with all the existing rules on top of what I've had to create to make this work. How do I deal with that? And honestly, for a character or anybody to become a dragon rider, there's a lot of requirements. It's quite tough. It's not an easy road. Not everybody can do it. Therefore, there shouldn't really necessarily be that many dragon riders, right? So, but what do you do when the player's character decides to jump onto that dragon? That's right. Some player decides they're flying around and then suddenly, let's just jump on top of the dragon. And they do. They give it a go. That's right. They line themselves up, they have a go, and you've got to try and figure out how to make this all work. And you're thinking, well, hang on, if they jump onto there, well, that's the thing. Just make it up. Use the rules that you have. Use your acrobatics, use your athletics, use your dexterity saving throws, use your dex checks, use all the things that you have access to figure out how to make it work. It's not going to be easy, right? You're going to make it difficult, as it should be. And of course, the dragon might not be willing for them to jump onto the back, and therefore you're going to have to make it even more difficult. But the process and discussion regarding what do you do when a player's character jumps onto a dragon, that's another video. We'll leave that for another day, because I think that requires a lot more effort on my part and an explanation. Okay, the reason that there are hardly any dragon riders is because, well, Wizards of the Coast hasn't made any rules, but they don't really use dragon riders in their games and their adventures. There's very few of them, right? They don't actually seem to pop up that often. When has that ever stopped you as a dungeon master from doing something in your game? Really? That's going to stop you? You can't tell me right now that having a dragon rider in your game is not something. This scene I'm showing you right now with the castle wall, the adventurers, and a dragon rider here, whether it be a player sitting on this dragon or somebody else, it doesn't matter. You can't tell me that isn't memorable for you and the players. You can't tell me that as a dungeon master, you don't want to have dragon riders in your game. I can't even imagine excluding that from my game. Not only that, you absolutely know that your players more than likely would love to have something like that. It doesn't have to happen all the time, but certainly why not? Okay. You have questions. You have many, many questions. More questions than I can probably answer. I'm going to do my best to work through as many of these questions as I possibly can. So I like the what, where, how, when, who, all that sort of stuff. We've sort of talked a little bit about that process already. So there are like 3 different ways you can use your dragon riders in the game, right? There are 3 basic locations and ways that you can incorporate those dragon riders. And the first one is the one that you are most frightened of, and that is the players having a mount that is a dragon. Now remember, there's a lot of requirements. We're going to talk about those, don't you worry. So players could have a dragon as a mount. Why not at high level? I did it at high level. I did it when I was running the Tyranny of Dragons. I ran through Horde of the Dragon Queen, the Rise of Tiamat, and during the Rise of Tiamat, they rode dragons into battle. They absolutely did. Did they do it a lot? No. But I had at least 1 or 2 battles where they did. And certainly later on, the opportunity to do more of that arose. So at high level, it makes sense. I can totally understand not wanting to do it at low level. Because to have a dragon who's essentially acting independently, and if it's willing to hang around with the adventurers, is probably going to crush all of your monsters. In fact, the party won't be necessary. They just say, okay, we'll go and have a barbecue, and the dragon can go and destroy the dungeon monsters, because there's just nothing that can possibly stand up to that thing. Okay, and look, it's happened in my game where players actually had a baby dragon, and that baby dragon was actually probably more powerful over time than they were, and they'd actually leave the baby dragon, the character or player who was running that particular character, who had the baby dragon, would leave the baby dragon behind. It would go and do its own thing, as it often dragons will. Dragons won't always show up. They're going to have their own set of priorities. They won't always be available to ride. You can use those dragons, those dragon riders, for NPCs. NPCs that can help out the party. They don't have to be there for a long time, but they can be there for a short period of time. It's really up to you. And how much you use them is really, again, completely up to you. But a non-player character controlled by the NPC who rides a dragon, oh, fantastic. You can't tell me you can't include that in your game. Here's the best one. What about a villain? You stick a villain on a dragon. You can't tell me that that isn't going to add something to your game. What would a villain like to do with a dragon mount? All sorts of terrible, nasty things. It's just lifting your game and the experience to another level. And it makes sense. Your villain is the main villain. It should have the best mount. What's the best mount you could have, short of riding on Tarrasque? Well, again, Tarrasque is nice, but it doesn't fly. Unless, of course, you've decided to make your Tarrasques fly. But a dragon, that's a different story. It's the best mount a villain that you have included in your game could possibly have. You have a Lich, and now has a Dracolich as a mount. You have a main mage, evil mage. It has a flying dragon. It could be any dragon you like. Could be black, could be red. Pick a colour, doesn't matter, really. Of course, sort of helps if they are aligned with the villain that you are role-playing in your game. But, again, take your pick. There are many to select from. Okay, so now you want some nuts and bolts. Like, what are some of the things that you would require from your players or from your villain or from your NPC to actually be able to have a dragon mount? Well, there's actually quite a few that I could think of, which doesn't make the process any easier than it was before, trying to explain and suggest to somebody to include them in their game. But let's work through what I've got so far. So how do you become a dragon rider? Well, first thing is you are going to need a willing dragon. That's right, somebody is going to have to go and find a willing dragon. Now, how easy is that? Probably not very easy. So that's a lot of work on the player's part to actually achieve that. That in itself is difficult. But there's more. That dragon isn't going to need a saddle. Do you think you can just wear and ride this dragon bareback and you'll stay on? Chances are you will fall off. You're likely to need a harness of some kind, and this saddle and harness will have to be fitted to the dragon so it doesn't interfere with its ability to fly, and it does feel like it's comfortable. Remember, your dragon might decide that it does not like having the harness, and therefore, whatever you do, it might require a bit of work put in and a bit of money outlay to actually get a decent saddle and harness to allow you to ride on it. Will this dragon actually allow you to have reins? Ooh, I don't know that there's going to be too many dragons that will allow that. If you can pull it off, wonderful. If you can't, it's not going to work. All right, what about the rider needing some sort of training? Yeah, probably will need some sort of training. So how long will that take? Make up a number. It could be months, it could be years, it could be weeks, it might be an even shorter period of time. You set the limits on that. It's really completely up to you. There's no sort of absolute with regard to how long it would take to train to be able to ride a dragon. And also too, you're going to have some sort of natural skills, not just natural skills, but at least reasonable skills, allowing you to actually make sure you can stay on this creature. I would imagine something like a high dexterity would be actually quite useful to maintain balance. I mean, really, that's what it's about. Staying on a creature that flies is going to be much more difficult than staying on a horse. Okay, that's a totally different kettle of fish. What about all of that treasure? You're going to have to share your treasure with your dragon mount. Did you think about that? It has its own dragon hoard that it needs to actually develop, because remember, at some point it's going to have offspring, and that offspring needs a treasure hoard to actually lie on. And if you're depending on the type of dragon, it might actually have to consume that kind of those rare gems and precious metals. So therefore, you will have to outlay quite a lot of your own treasure, and obviously have access to, and an ongoing access to, more treasure, one for breeding and one to feed the creature if it actually consumes precious metals and gems. Ho! Now, if it doesn't eat those sorts of things and doesn't need it for breeding, you still got the issue of a dragon has got like a natural instinct to create a dragon horde. So you can't ignore it. You can't say, well, this dragon is not going to worry about that sort of thing, because that's not going to work. Remember, it's now essentially an independent creature. Dragons have their own rules, their own set of thoughts, feelings, and how they operate. That dragon's going to need time to go and hunt for food. Ooh, are you thinking you're going to feed this dragon? Well, maybe you can, but does the dragon actually want to be fed, or will you need to allow it to go off and do its own thing so that it can collect food? And of course, it's got to go and hunt for food in the appropriate location, because going and plucking the sheep and cows from the local farmer probably not going to go down too well. You're going to need enough wealth to support the dragon's upkeep. There's quite a few different things going on with the dragon, and I've already talked about quite a lot of that already. So that means that really this is really an option only for a high-level character, not a low-level character. So you don't have to worry about the fact that low-level characters might have a dragon, because that's not really ever going to happen, is it? How do you deal with civilizations? Oh, there's a civilization I want to visit. Well, the problem is that most civilizations and civilized people and cultures and so forth are just going to be terrified of your dragon mount. You can't just ride into town or into the city and land. That is just going to cause all sorts of problems. So yet again, one of those issues. Yes, you could say, well, just outside of the outskirts of the town, I will get off the dragon, let it do its thing, and we'll meet back up later on while I do my business in the civilized area. But then every time you meet a new NPC while you're adventuring and you've got your dragon around, what is their response going to be to the fact that you have a dragon as a mount? Is it going to be fair? Are they going to want to aid you and assist you? Or are they just going to wind up putting up barriers that you have to deal with? All things to consider, right? Your dragon will need custom armor that is strong and light. That means, yet again, more expense. It's getting expensive to have this dragon, isn't it? So you're going to have to find somebody capable who knows how to actually make armor for a dragon. So you've got to find somebody skilled enough. You've got to have enough wealth. You've got to make sure it's made out of something that's strong and light. And does a dragon need to actually have armor? It's got natural armor, you're thinking. Well, that might be the case. Maybe you decide, I won't put armor on this thing. Maybe the dragon doesn't like the idea of having armor in the first place. But if you start facing off against other dragons, then putting armor on your dragon might in fact be a very smart idea. It's an extra layer of defense, right? Or is it not an extra layer of defense? So, something to consider depending on the type of dragon you've got and whether the dragon will actually allow you to apply armor to that creature. What about the animal handling check? Do I need to engage in an animal handling check? Do I need to make persuasion checks since this is quite an intelligent creature? It's not really like an animal as such. It's smarter than I am, and I'm the rider. Do I have to do this every time I want to get the dragon to do something? Or will it just go and do its own thing? Will it actually be more of a liability than a bonus to me? Having a dragon as a mount seems like a wonderful idea, but only if the dragon has the same ideas and is willing to cooperate with the rider and do what the rider wants. And the rider might not necessarily make smart decisions, whereas the dragon is probably a lot smarter than the rider, as I said. We're talking about an independent mount now. What happens with an independent mount? Well, one, you've got to try and control it, which of course you're not because you're allowing it to be acting independently, and an independent mount gets its own attack. That means breath weapons, that means carnage, that means it can do a lot of damage, that means having to adjust things. It might well mean having to adjust things. It gets its own attacks. It's got frightful presence. Are you using the dragons as they are written in the monster manual? Or are you going to modify the dragon so it's playable or usable by your player's character? Or don't you need to worry about that because it's going to be an NPC or a villain using this dragon? Again, things to consider. Okay, yes, we know dragon riders, dragons are overpowered, and yes, you will have to adjust your monsters and your enemies and your creatures because really there isn't really any other choice, is there? What else are you going to do? You can't just sort of leave it there. So you will have to make some adjustments and changes. What happens for a rider on a dragon? Is this just a fast travel method, or do we need to consider combat? How does a rider on a dragon actually fight without getting in the way? Because let's get real, there is a head moving around, there's a tail swinging about, there are wings flapping. So how does a rider use weapons and fight on a mount? That's a good question, really. Well, I would suggest to you that something like a sword or a mace or anything like that being swung is probably not very useful, because really the dragon's doing all of that. If you're up close, how are you supposed to get in close enough? The dragon's got a longer neck and longer reach than you do. Okay, so you're saying, okay, let's go with the spear and the lance. Well, yet again, more likely to get in the way. So the only time that a rider's ever going to be using a melee or close quarter weapon is really when they have to get off the dragon, or they're pushed into no other choice but to have to engage in close quarter combat with somebody while they're on the dragon, or they get off the dragon to engage in close quarter combat. So really, the kind of weapon that you have as a rider is not going to be the sword or the axe or even the spear or lance, because it's really a one-shot attack, and after that it's done. So what is a good weapon to use on a mount? That's a dragon. Let's go with bows. Longbow might be just a bit too long, but what about a short bow? Now you can fire a short bow either forward, provided the head is not moving around too much, because you don't want to shoot the dragon in the back of the head. That would be bad. You can shoot backwards, which would be really useful to the dragon if it's being pursued. So as long as you can turn in the saddle and in your harness and fire your bow backwards, could be useful. Firing to the side, again, a problem, particularly if the dragon is flapping. But if it's just gliding, yes, you could do that. What about bombs? Is there some sort of bomb or shrapnel that you can drop on your enemies that are on the ground? Kind of hard to target anything if you're flying high, so you'd have to fly down quite low to be able to be effective in that way. Does that mean you can back it up with the dragon breath as you drop your bombs? Possibly. I would say to you that probably the most useful weapon that you can have as a dragon rider is going to be something like magic. Let's get real. If you are on a dragon, magic is the no-brainer, because the chances are you don't have to worry about hitting or damaging the creature you're on, because of the nature of the types of spells that you can cast. Many spells are going to be vastly more useful. It's just like the bow. The only difference is it does better things than the bow does. So, magic. Definitely, magic casters on a dragon work fantastic, whether that be a player, a non-player character, or your villain. Look, I would like to think that this has covered most of the things you might have wanted to talk about with regard to dragon riders. Now, this might have been useful for players and dungeon masters. I'm not too sure. It's not really designed to really be an option as a player where you can go to your dungeon master and say, look, this is what Fred said, let's try this. That's not really what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is more dungeon masters be a bit more open to the idea of having dragon riders in your game in some form or another, because it is Dungeons and Dragons after all. Now, I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters, which you are welcome to go and check out if you want to. So feel free to go and peruse my selection. There are so many options out there now. I have a Patreon page where you can go and support me there. I also have affiliate links down in the description to the book depository and Amazon, where you can support me in the channel so I keep doing videos like this. I also have a merchandise shelf just below the video, which you can also buy merch regarding Keep Rolling Your 20s, which is my catchphrase. And hey, look, share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And I do a lot of them, as a lot of my subscribers will know. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. I'm not gone, but I do need some water. All right, fire out your questions, give your feedback, let's have a discussion. And Hopefully this was the kind of content and information people wanted me to talk about. Who knows? Dear. Nothing's a terrible idea until you've done it twice and you discovered it was a terrible idea. At least try something at least once or twice. Okay, let's have a look here. And if Fred is just saying, short answer, dragon riders are too overpowered. Well, overpowered villains and NPCs, is that really an issue? Not really. It only feels like an issue when you start talking about a player's character. But at higher levels, often it's a no-brainer. It's the first thing they're going to start asking you for when they want to have a mount. They say, "Look, I'm tired of having a horse or a elephant or a camel. Or a donkey or a mule? I don't. Can I have like a dragon?" And if you say no to that, they're going to say, "Can I have a giant eagle?" Because giant eagles always save the day, right? So that's usually the response you get from most players. Okay, Aaron, what do you got here? Using the Strongholds and Followers 5e add-on from MCDM, yep. My players rolled to get a young blue dragon as a part of their city. Ah, okay. They didn't want it to die, so they left it in the city the whole time. Yes, so now it becomes a defender. So that dragon, although you could ride it, and it could take you somewhere if you have to travel a long distance, at high level a lot of characters will just travel by teleporting, but you can't really teleport to somewhere you don't know where to go. That can be a bit more difficult, and you can try and rely on teleport circles, but a dragon's a good way of transporting high-level characters and even low-level characters from one location to another very quickly and in a way that's quite interesting. And trust me, if you allow even once for your players to be mounted on a dragon in a battle, they will always remember it. You don't have to do it any more than once. And yes, a lot of players won't want their dragon to die in combat. In fact, they will be more concerned about the dragon's welfare than their own character in some cases, which is a little bit ridiculous, I know. How's it going, Ice King? What dragon lets a humanoid ride him? It's a good point. That's right. You're looking for a specific type of dragon, and you have to build a relationship with a creature which has been around a long time. And also, to be honest, I know you're probably saying is the only dragon that's going to let a humanoid ride it is a dragon that's stupid. Because why would you let somebody who's not as smart as you ride you? But there must be some sort of symbiotic relationship going on here. In other words, there has to be a motivation for the dragon to allow somebody to ride it from one location to the next or engage in a battle. Okay, Aaron, what do you got here? Their townsfolk got tired of feeding it and put up with the gold or weapons going missing. Yeah, it creates a lot of complexity having a dragon as now I'm not going to say a pet, I'm going to say as a companion, or, to be fair, if you have a very small group, going the way of the dragon, certainly at higher levels, would make a lot more sense than having a wolf or a bear or a lion. A dragon mount would be useful, particularly if you're running only 2 players through the game. Big Kid, I never considered this, but it sounds like a terrible idea. Well, well, you know me, I present lots of different ideas. Sometimes they seem like good ideas, and sometimes they sound like terrible ideas. Dear. But, you know my attitude to everything. Try everything at least twice, and if it still doesn't work, then ditch it and try something else. Aaron, what do you got here? While using a lightning breath... Will using a lightning breath cause the rider to take damage with the dragon's armor conducting the electricity? Well, could be. You could rule it that way. Remember, the lightning breath is often a straight line, so it's not necessarily traveling through the armor itself. This is one time when you wouldn't really put armor on a dragon if it has lightning breath. It would be asking for trouble. Hi Matt, how's it going? Yes, you are late, unfortunately. Use dragonlance. Well, yes, you can. Dragonlance is a good example. Got lots of very, very good ideas. Hi, Joe. Good stuff, Fred. I'll keep all this in mind. I'll probably not allow it unless it's the dragon's idea to save the befriended character. I think that's a good point. I mean, when I applied it in my own game, initially the baby dragon was the player's idea. That did not work very well, and then the player actually took the dragon out of play rather than me doing that. I didn't really have too much of an issue because by the time we got to about level 8, they could destroy anything anyway, so it was sort of over as far as I was concerned. It didn't matter whether it was the dragon doing it or them. But yes, I applied it when it served the interest of the dragon. When the dragon saw the rider as an asset, and a good time for a dragon to have a rider is when the rider can provide something the dragon can't do because it's busy doing other things. And casting spells like a mage, this is, they're not really going to be terribly interested in a close quarter rider. They want somebody who can either fire arrows or cast magic spells at range. Those are the things that are going to be far more useful to a dragon in terms of having a rider on top of them. Okay, Big Kid, what do you got here? I'm just kind of giving my Dragonborn wings that will start off only capable of featherfall, and as he levels up, he will get increased flying ability. That's a cool idea. One of the things with the Dragonborn is what happens to a Dragonborn if you progress far enough along. Why not? Particularly if it's taken on something like the Draconic Sorcerer option, changing its form, changing their form in some way. Going full dragon, you can readjust everything. You can adjust everything. You can adjust dragon breath power and everything like that. You can adjust the size of the dragon. They don't have to be, large or huge. They may only be just slightly larger than medium, so in between medium and large size. Or still be medium sized but be shaped like a dragon rather than being on 2 legs. Lots of different things you can do. Everything can be adjusted, and a Dragonborn already has a breath weapon. All you're doing now at this point is adjusting their form. So, and this is all, you have to talk to your players and see what they think about that sort of thing. Or is a Dragonborn a natural individual, a natural race that could potentially ride on a dragon? Would that be something a dragon would consider acceptable? Big Kid, yeah, off topic. You're welcome to go off topic. I can be off topic for a little while, but I do have another live stream coming up at 1 p.m. and that is the Dungeons and Lasers. I'm going to be showing you Dungeons and Lasers. For those of you who are interested in that sort of thing, Dungeons and Lasers is a Kickstarter. I don't normally do Kickstarters unless they send me something. Yes, they sent me something to show you. So you're going to get to see some cool stuff. Big Kid, off topic, but can you do DM tips for hunting lodge Horde of the Dragon Queen? I just want let's talk about my my last video. Let's talk about, just to give you an idea of the problems that I have with those videos. I think they're a good idea to do. They don't get very much interest. Most people are, most of the time I get very little income from them. There's hardly anybody who ever wants them. And therefore I'm always reluctant to do those things. What I have found, if a patron asks me on the Patreon page to make a particular video, I just do it. I figure that's part of the deal, right? They are supporting me in doing this, so that makes a lot of sense. Now, and if somebody on Patreon did that, I would definitely do it. The problem with Horde of the Dragon Queen is I dislike the adventure so much, so it's hard for me to talk about that particular adventure with any kind of passion and with enough interest to keep you getting the right stuff. Yesterday I did The Lost Mine of Phandelver, and I covered the Red Brand Hideout. It was a lot of work. It did not work out the way I wanted. I spent less time on it than I did the Cragmore Hideout video, where I laid out an entire map and talked about everything. That was really difficult and stressful for me. Those sorts of videos are, I find they are difficult to do well because people are expecting something that is beyond my skill level, and I know nobody else is doing it. And if anybody would do it, it would be me, right? But I just find that those videos are just hugely difficult. I don't know about the hunting lodge. I really don't know. It's not the worst chapter to cover, but there's still enough there that it's problematic. I find that those particular sections actually need sort of to be broken up into smaller pieces, because you wind up with a half-hour video or more with a lot of content that I have to try and cover. How's it going, Scott? So, Big Kid, I'm going to have to think about it a lot and really sort of what sort of questions do you have about the hunting lodge? Can I deal with them now rather than try to make an entire video on the topic? I know that's not necessarily the answer you wanted, but is it going to be better for me to simply go through the process of just answering questions now in the chat while I can about the hunting lodge, and then go from there? I'm not entirely sure if that's necessarily what you're looking for, though. Do you know what I mean? I'm reluctant to do those sorts of videos just because of the nature of them. And I'm also unsure, necessarily. I'm trying really hard to keep my patrons happy because it is, consistent income coming in per month, and right now I'm having to eat. Hi Matt, how's it going? So if I can answer questions about the hunting lodge now, that's the best time for me to do it, rather than to try and do it at some other point. Just a suggestion. I mean, it's there. You can think about it, and you're welcome to ask me. Oh gosh, I just saw. I thought you might be. I guess Big Kid, I am. I just don't know how I'm going to do it and make it short and to the point. I think what I'm going to do, Big Kid, is if I do it, I'm going to take this and I'm going to restrict myself to 2 pages. And if I have more to say after 2 pages, I'm stopping, because I find that those videos just keep going on and on and on, and they just wind up being vastly too complicated. I really would help to know specifically the types of questions you want answered. But yes, Big Kid, I guess I'm doing it. I'll do the video. Aaron, what was your conclusion for paid DMing? I have somebody coming on Friday to teach me how to DM online. I don't need to be taught how to DM in person. That's something that can happen. But what I will likely do is I'll get some training. I have a few people who have showed interest, and I've started to keep a list of people who would be willing to pay for me to run a game for them, whether that be on a consistent basis, or whether that be in the form of sort of a one-off. I've found a sort of a general location where I think I can do it. I guess the problem for me is, although I've got lots of experience dungeon mastering, I don't have a lot of experience doing it online. So there's all these tools that I have to learn how to use, because that seems to be how it's done. The virtual tabletop is a very common sort of use. Okay, so Big Kid's given me some feedback. I'll get to your question in a sec. Matt, what do you got here? Pinky finger to the corner of your mouth. $1 million, mohahaha. yeah, I suppose so. What's Fred? What do you got here? A few people will do well at paid DMing. Most will be lucky to get players to pay in their pizza. Yep, fair enough. That's true. I have to look at lots of options. Otherwise, I can't feed myself. And to be fair, and I've said it a few times, this is probably my last shot at this. If I can't make it work this time round, if I do get a job, I probably won't be able to maintain the channel. It's just how it just works. It's getting really rough out there in terms of what they expect, and it'll be a long traveling times. It'll be poor pay. It'll be long hours of work, and I just won't have any free time anymore. I know that's what's coming. Okay, Big Kid, what do you got here? Maybe just a high-level overview, prerequisites for the party to make it through it. The beginning part was a little confusing. Maybe explain the starting point. Okay, so that's good. All right, so I've got some sort of idea. You're looking more of an overview. Prerequisites for the party, not really that important. I don't think that's going to be an issue. The beginning part can be a little bit confusing. Yes, that can be a bit confusing. But yes, I know what I'm dealing with now. I will do my best. It will be a short video, so it will not be a complete sort of rundown. I can't do that. It's too hard. Yeah, not highly probable. Yes, I know, Fred. I know it's not highly probable DMing online. That's why once I hopefully get my pricing for my merchandise sorted out, I'll do a video and sort of show you what's been developed. Okay, Big Kid, if you don't think the content will be engaging enough, don't worry about it. Yeah, but you are, Big Kid, as I almost forgot, you are a patron, aren't you? So I'll have a good hard think about it, and I'll see if I can't put something together, okay? I know a lot of people have asked me to do something on the Horde of the Dragon Queen. I've just been very reluctant. Okay, look, I need to get going because I'm doing another video live streamed at 1 PM New Zealand Standard Time. It is a Kickstarter, and it's on a new product. I will be showing you the product, which is nice. At least I have something to actually show you. Otherwise, I would never do it. And I actually was quite surprised they did actually send me something to actually to show you, which is fantastic. I did make it clear that I will probably not do that unless they had something that I could show people. Okay, but anyway, have a good day, night, morning, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Look after yourself and your family. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.